The ascension of a world. In the higher planes and dimensions of manifestation, the being aspires with all its mighty power of his heart towards God, and this causes God to unceasing pour into the heart of the being his love, which opens the heart of being even more. Divine grace then pours to an even greater extent into the heart of the being, filling it with love and divinity. Many horizontal roads can open, many temptations can appear, temptations that are generally given course in our specifically three-dimensional world, but if the being does not respond to these temptations and keeps its eminently upward orientation, aspiring to divinity, to the supreme source of all, to the knowledge of God, loving him with all its heart, this causes God to descend entirely into the heart of the being and remain there as a permanent, highly fulfilling living presence, and it is a state of fulfillment that cannot be compared with none of the fulfillments given by the ephemeral pleasures of this world, fulfillment that gives a feeling of full completeness of being. Keeping the upward integration in this way, gradually the world around the being, the space around it from profane becomes sacred, the being no longer living in a profane world, but in a sacred environment, because everything around it is impregnated with this state of sacredness. Continuing to aspire to the divinity, the grace of God pours even more into the heart of the being, generating a state of ineffable, supreme joy, given by the contact with the divinity, and then the being feels the need to give this to others, to the whole world in which he lives, and his heart it becomes like a spring, an artesian fountain from which the divinity now present in the heart of the being, its light and love pours outward, and thus everything is even more exalted and deified, the outer world becoming like a temple in which the being lives. The state of abandonment of the being in front of God, the upward orientation being maintained, gradually causes that the outer space to be incorporated into the inner space, in an ineffable osmosis, the being then ascending to God together with the world around it encompassed now fully in his being, and thus all is exalted, world and being being fully unified, in a total integration of the outer space with the inner space, and all is found contained in God.